They say perception is reality, which is the dumbest thing in the world.
Earth. The Earth has seen a ton of Earth-shaping events. And some are all-at-once kind of events, and some take their time. And the NBA is quite similar. But if you want to talk about how the NBA is shaped and reshaped, you must talk about free agency. Freedom. Freedom from what? Ownership? Owners? So much subtext there. Ownership. But we're not talking about subtext here. I'm here to tell you a little story. And that is about one of the more interesting, dare I say, consequential years of NBA free agency that I can remember, at least. But who am I? I am the NBA storyteller, aka Scotty Chicken, aka the bank teller, aka dunked on Ewing really hard, aka you clearly don't know basketball. A guy who genuinely gets glossy-eyed when talk of caps and swaps and flops and futures goes on too long. Ugh. But I am also a guy who can thoroughly enjoy some of the smallest, oddest details our beautiful game can provide. And as loud and as obvious free agency can be each year, as routine as this process has become, the typical slog we drag players through.
It's stressful. Free agency is fun, but it's stressful at the same time.
The entire year.
First time in a long time you're an unrestricted free agent. How do you prepare for next season?
Leading into their freedom.
Man, I don't know. This is the first time I've been in a situation of actually being a free agent. You're not even 24 hours from the season being over, so I haven't even thought about it.
Jeez, they don't let up.
You know, why keep bringing it up? You know, right now it's about this season. It's not about LA, New York, or wherever. You know, and I'm really tired of it.
Every single situation and scenario worked out, gamed out, talked out exhaustively.
So after 3 years, so who's already been in place?
This will be a series, and I think
yeah, it's gonna we will see.
I just don't trust none of y'all.
Players really do get sick of this.
first summer where you're gonna be an unrestricted free agent. Like what kind of things you
I'm
want?
not talking about that.
Oh,
Anything to do with conversation about free agency?
That's the conversation you gonna have. I don't think about that type of stuff.
Now all of a sudden guys are talking about things a year, 2 years in advance. Like who are the target free agents 2 years from now?
Bothering you more this year? Is it louder this year?
It's unnecessary.
What are your thoughts when you see those kind of rumors that you and him going to LA, that kind of stuff? I mean,
You like fashion? Who are you? Why do I gotta talk to you?
I get sick of this. I mean, I feel like the larger world, and the world of politics specifically, has learned from sports. And the idea that the season is never over, and nothing is ever settled, and a decision is never too early to discuss.
Jurassic Park, 37 million people, the men behind you, you have such an important decision looming. How does a championship shape what you have in front of you?
I'm about to enjoy this with my teammates and coaches, and I'll think about that later.
As you should. Congratulations.
So, for our first stop, we will begin the journey at the very first unrestricted free agent. In 1988, David Stern and the rest of the Big Boy Pants Club tweaked the rules, allowing for players at the end of contracts to be unrestricted, meaning they could go wherever the heck they wanted, barring that the team they wanted to go to also wanted them. But also, this only worked for players that had played through 2 contracts and had at least 7 years of NBA experience. This change immediately separated the owners into 2 groups, the shallow-sighted and the visionaries. The visionaries being the ones who saw what was now possible and knew exactly how to get it. And as an example of that, right when this announcement was being made, Jerry Colangelo, the man that always was, said to himself as he peered towards the Seattle Supersonics ownership, "You just lost Tom Chambers." Anyway, the other fun yet extremely typical and telling part of this whole process, Tom, who planned on being wooed and wined and dined throughout the summer, he wanted to meet with at least 6 teams. But Tom totally lost his chill and signed with the very first team he let in his house, which happened to be the Suns, and this gentleman here, Jerry, the ever-present Colangelo. I mean, really, all that unrestricted freedom, and he loses it all over the first set he sees? And this is from Tom directly. They came in the door and offered me a deal. I couldn't refuse it. It caught me off guard. I was prepared to talk to 6 or 7 other teams. I was in a unique situation to be able to pick and choose a team, but I never had a chance to talk to anyone else. Somewhere else in this thing it says that Jerry and the Suns ownership weren't gonna leave. They prepared to not leave until they got what they wanted. They knew how to hustle this situation. They knew how to get what they want. And there's something to be said for this, because as we look into the more recent class of uncaged free birds, you do see how human this process is, and as much analysis and scenarios are rammed and crammed into our brains, we still see folks, people, making humanish choices, the unimaginative ones, the ones where if you put yourself in their shoes, you'd say, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. So, let's try it out. Let's dive into one of the most interesting, league-defining years that I've ever seen in free agency. Bring it up. Bring it up, chicken. 2012, where the big prize at the top of the pack of free agency was the best point guard in the league, Darren Williams. And don't get this twisted. This man was a revelation. I mean, if you don't remember the Darren Williams era, he was that guy. Like, all-star starter, first-team All-NBA, peers with this guy and this guy. I mean, he played on those amazing USA teams. I believe it was the Redeem team, right? It was the best thing since the Dream Team. When everybody just decided to show up and to give the NBA its international credit back, Kobe, LeBron, Melo, and that was Melo and Darren. Side note, funny thing about Team USA, it was that Melo somehow led those teams. I mean, in all that alpha broth, it's Melo with his 15-footer that did his thing. That's why it's always cute to hear how happy he was about the gold medals.
Carmelo Anthony said he believes winning gold medals is equal to winning NBA championships.
Oh, come on.
That's his equivalent of a championship. And, you know, good for him. But really, is that feat anywhere as compelling or challenging or even in the same ballpark as an NBA championship? Well, no, but it is oddly special for him to be MVP of this, which is much better than an all-star team. That's something different, special, like really special. I mean, the only other person to be in this type of situation with this type of relative talent and to excel in that group was the original Dream Team and Michael Jordan. Is Carmelo our Jordan? No, but he's got something in him that's similar, I guess. In a situation with all this talent, for some reason, Carmelo Anthony rises to the top. I don't know what that is. I don't know, but it's something. Okay, Darren. Back to Darren. If we know about his greatness, we also know about the man's downfall. And boy, did it have an impact all around. Think about it. He was the man who made the Utah Jazz brass choose between him and the longest tenured coach in the game, Jerry freaking Sloan. And they chose Darren. They chose a guy named Darren. They forced out the god Sloan. And after he does this in the messiest of ways, where he totally looked like an asshole, soon after he ends up bailing on the team. And on top of that, to make 2012 even extra weird, for some odd reason, weird old Jason Kidd decided to become a package deal in free agency. What the heck is that? He wanted to package up with Darren Williams and go to the same place. It was a Rick Bucher report that showed them spending a long weekend together golfing in the Hamptons. The Hamptons, man. Crazy free agency stuff goes down in the Hamptons. Anyway, in the Hamptons, playing golf is where they hatched their little package deal plan, according to Rick Bucher.
I guess it's like the LeBron, Bosh, Wade situation. Agreeing to team up somewhere, a team to be determined. Except Jason, as a player, is right at death's door. And actually, so is Darren. Listen, folks made so much noise about this team-up culture. But players have been trying to team up forever. Forever. But let's keep it moving.
And it didn't even work out. Well, not right away. Jason played for the Knicks for the next season, as Darren went on to the Brooklyn Nets, and none of this ended up having a positive effect on the future. Instead, this was just a blazing trail of disaster. Well, seriously, what was that? So many hopes involved with these moves, but it all resulted in just pure embarrassment. We all sat around for old Darren to show up, just getting flashes now and then. I guess he put up decent numbers for a year or so, and then an injury. And then after the injury, an inability to recover, it not only looked like his skill was declining, but his general confidence. Darren was now timid. Also, Jason, the package kid, did eventually show up in Brooklyn, but he popped up as the coach, a first-year coach of the Nets. The only thing he did in Brooklyn was make this move legendary.
Ty with plenty of time to push in transition, just over 8 seconds remaining.
But credit where credit is due. And Jason Kidd just may have learned this move here when he was a member of the Dallas Mavericks. And in the Western Conference Finals, they played against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And as the Dallas Mavericks were down 2, Dirk goes to the free throw line to tie it up, and conspicuously, between the 2 free throws, there is a sudden mess to clean up. And even though Mike Breen, listen to him here, seems a tad clueless.
And Dallas does not have a foul to give, as you see the goal boys cleaning up the sweat from the players falling.
Saying they're cleaning up sweat. Mark Jackson knows what's going on. Well, somewhat.
Well, a smart play by the ball boys in Oklahoma City. Ice Dirk Nowitzki.
And what's even funnier is after the fact, Dirk tries to tell the ref exactly what that was because everybody in the damn arena knows what it was. Listen to him.
And if you're Scott Brooks, you've got
a trick. So back to Jason Kidd's attempt to buy time. I want to give a little credit here. How committed is this player here? I mean, he gets his instructions so quickly and just executes it perfectly. I mean, zero hesitation. And such a smooth, precise hit. Jason didn't have to do any selling or acting for the cup to spill because this guy right here did his job perfectly. Blam! Right into the water. And then finally, even the announcer in this game knows what's going on. Mike Fratello, or whoever this guy is, listen to him.
I used to do that all the time on purpose. I wanted to talk to the team. Really? Oh, yeah, all the time.
And he even cops to doing it many times. Point is, this is nothing new, but Jason Kidd did make it big or famous.
All the while, Jerry Sloan sat at his home wondering how the hell did this man force him out. Okay. So the Jazz sucked for another decade or so after that. Great. Brooklyn also stunk, and it just got worse. But then it just gets worse for the league entirely, as another 2012 free agent who signed a contract with the Celtics, thinking he was going to end his career as a Celtic, gets traded to the Nets. Talking about KG here. I mean, you really think this league is about loyalty, but it never was. It never was. Anyway, we'll get back to KG, because this class continues to have ripples, and outside of a few at the top, it's an all-time supporting cast. It's the meat of the NBA. Folks like Jamal Crawford,
the winner of the Kia NBA Sixth Man Award,
2012 free agent, the perpetual loser. Really, every time a team puts their hopes on his back,
how you feeling being here? Excited.
They decline. Look it up. So he signs as a free agent with the Clippers in 2012. And it really is the certification of his new existence as the piece we're missing. Jamal Crawford. When your local desperate team is looking to make a move and show its fan base that we are finding the pieces, they sign Jamal Crawford. Golden State to Atlanta to Portland, he continued to get picked up and shown off as if he was that one missing piece. You know when teams think they got that good one, or at least they want to make a show for their fans to feel like they got that good one, they have that little press conference and hold up the jersey. They don't do that for everyone, but they sure do it for Jamal Crawford.
For me, I think shape has no age.
What have you guys talked about as far as a role for you?
Coach just wants me to be who I've been my whole career.
And they never win. Even when he was at the Clippers, 6th man of the year, over and over and over again.
And while I suppose I'm supposed to get the league's approval on this, and at least on behalf of Kia today, I'd like to rename the award in his honor. I might get fined later. I might become the only sponsor that ever gets fined by the commissioner. So, as true fans, it's my honor to present Jamal Crawford of the Los Angeles Clippers with the 2015-2016 Jamal Crawford NBA.
But look at their win total. It slowly ticked down, down, and down. Is it his fault? No. Is it a place where a team is, where they are the type of team that would want a Jamal Crawford? Is that the type of team that would slowly tick down in the wins? Maybe. He's not the cause, he is a symptom. But okay, let's get even further here. The year 2012 is also notable for the end, being some of the NBA's greatest players' last move of free will. But the twist was, in 2012, nobody knew it was their last stand. Folks still thought these guys had a little juice left. Folks like Chauncey Billups. Between Detroit and Denver, he was on a 5-year all-star streak, and his star was on the rise, an inconceivable amount of rise after the 04 championship and the Finals MVP Opinion Award.
All of you who had Detroit in 5, no you didn't. The Pistons delivering another NBA title to Motown, somewhat unexpected.
Yeah, I didn't think they could dominate a team that won 3 rings to the extent that they would completely demoralize them and really take their will to play.
Legs, why is Chauncey Billups the MVP of the series?
Because the guy has so many responsibilities and he was so consistent throughout this series. He has to score and be a playmaker. Did them both. Well deserved.
But then getting waived from the Knicks after making it clear as florping day he didn't want to be there, and then using his freedom to bounce from the Clippers and back to the Pistons, playing almost no games and producing almost nothing except the fact that he's back with the Pistons, with one of those nice, warm, hometown, homecoming endings.
Fans, he's still that deal out of park deal. The University of Colorado. He knows the Piston won in the red, blue, and white tonight. This is Chauncey.
This was nice. He ended up back where he kind of started, at least where he made his name.
Before I go, I know I've played on a lot of teams, for a lot of organizations. I've been all over. I, Chauncey Billups, make no doubt about it, will always and forever be a Detroit Piston. I love you.
And I always like when that happens. In the same type of closing chapter for a fellow 2012 free agent, Kevin Garnett. And one day we absolutely will have to get into the KG first time around Timberwolves, because that team was bad. Like bad, like bad. Folks really forget about that team. They were a monster.
Believe it.
Tell what we're doing here, man. I told you I ain't coming here. Tell Larry I ain't doing this. You know what I'm saying? I don't understand nothing I'm doing. What is this, huh?
What are you saying? Sam talks, he uses like 100 words and then he brings them out all at once. You're like, what? Oh, you want me showing the pick wrong? Yeah. Oh, you're playing defense? Yeah. But I'm gonna shoot it.
Anyway, but a little preview here. After Ray Allen, co-free agent, did something that we'll get to later, KG's future was pretty much sealed. He was gonna go out with a whimper in Boston. KG signs with Boston, figuring to take his place alongside the greats, but just one measly year later, old Danny realizes he's got no loyalty to anything or no one or nothing with a living heartbeat.
Danny did tell Red he should trade us right now because we don't have much left in the tank.
And consuming draft picks is the only way he can survive, kind of like the way we breathe air. And he pulls the most lopsided trade in a long time, completely dicking over Brooklyn. And outside of moving KG and Paul Pierce to Brooklyn in exchange for, I guess, the temporary title of genius, the move initiated KG's relatively short journey home to Minnesota for his own nice little warm, sweet homecoming retirement. Back to where it all started. Seriously.
When I was back, 6'11" from Farragut Academy High School, number 21, Kevin Garnett.
10 All-Star appearances in a Timberwolves uniform, an MVP award in 2004, a trip to the Western Conference Finals. He has meant so much to this organization. And the second era of Kevin Garnett in a Minnesota Timberwolves uniform, a salute to the crowd as we get set for basketball.
That was a move that was not in the cards until Boston dumped him. He was a Celtic until he wasn't and said, you know what? I'm gonna be a Wolf or Wolves. a Timberwolf. And that's where he retired. It was great. Great for the league, great for history, but we got there in a very messy way.
Kevin Garnett!
Speaking of messy, there was then Steve Nash and Roy Hibbert. See, everyone knew these guys still had juice in 2012. Not only were they worth max, they were worth franchises breaking their backs. I mean, let's talk about Roy Hibbert. Between Darren and Roy, those two were defining the league in the previous years. Roy had hit the league with the whole concept of verticality, just bodies his way to a rule-defining role. The Pacers were running through the league, LeBron was in their sights, and free agent Roy Hibbert, all-star free agent Roy Hibbert, was worth it. So the Pacers did not F around and paid him. They paid him the 2012 big bucks. They took him from $2 million a year to $13 million. And Roy gave them another good year or two before the bottom fell out. And I remember this collapse vividly. And I don't know if it was the league that moved past him or if it was some weird thing after a player finally arrives on the big stage and just can't live up to it anymore. But his confidence was shot. The man was down to 4 rebounds a game. For God's sake, 4 rebounds. And then he goes to LA, where all big men go to either ascend or die. And the Lakers paid him. They paid him a career high $15 million. Only God and Jeannie Buss know why they paid Roy Hibbert $15 million. I guess they thought he was gonna be the old Roy. But that just doesn't happen in LA. Because you know what? This wasn't untypical of LA. Because they're revered for transcendent big men, but it's not like they haven't swung and missed time and time again with other big men like this and this. Because when they get a good one, they do a bang-up job making you forget about all the failures. Side note, the way Roy Hibbert's game broke, it seemed almost completely internal, and I feel like I hadn't seen a player break down internally that clearly since Nick Anderson, when he missed those free throws in the finals in 1995.
He couldn't handle it, but the Rockets have hurt themselves. Usually a dependable free throw shooter. The match, and Anderson missing on both, but gets to the rebound and again draws the foul. And the Magic get a huge break here after 2 Nick Anderson misses.
He completely forgot how to shoot free throws.
And another miss by Nick Anderson.
Well, the 3 to make 4 rule, that's in effect, I believe, yes. And he misses 4 straight. The Rockets take a timeout with 5 6/10 seconds remaining.
Well, Nick Anderson had just missed 2. Penny Hardaway can't even look because he knows Nick is struggling. And now, this is where the mind really starts to play tricks. You've missed 3 in a row. You want to make sure you just get it up there, and it's too hard off the back iron. And the reaction of Nick Anderson, knowing that if he had just made one of those, it would have given the Magic a hammerlock on this game.
And for the rest of his career, he couldn't. And that was one of the saddest things in the world. It's like one of those pitchers who forgets how to pitch, if you watch this. But let's keep it moving. And back to Roy. His downfall. As he slowly became irrelevant, it mirrored the Pacers and their fall into mediocrity. And speaking of all that, Steve Nash. Back to Steve. He had to be the perfect example of what the 2012 free agency represented, what its long-term effects were. Steve, after a real-life groundbreaking run in Phoenix, in the perfect Stevie Nash type system, and with LA's failure to acquire Chris Paul, in 2012, they set their sights on the free agent Steve Nash, and Steve Nash also had that wandering eye looking to the big city. I mean, who can't resist a call from LA? Steve always wanted to be a filmmaker, big time. You know, ever since he left Canada, he's wanted to end up there, secretly. And LA was all in. Pay the man. 37-year-old, 37-year-old, $10 million a year in his obvious last contract as he's pushing 40. But alongside Kobe and another forgettable big man, Dwight, Steve would promptly end his career with an injury and sit on the sideline with the full ire of LA.
Especially since very self-aware Steve went on Instagram and posted this wonderful little clip of him on vacation, hitting the crap out of a golf ball, while he's supposed to be reeling from a seasons-ending back surgery. Also, he just seemed to speak one too many times about getting paid and that being the reason he didn't want to retire. But he screwed this up so bad that he had to go on to write an open letter to LA fans and whoever explaining how his back works. And honestly, who cares what he wrote? Because the whole mini era is already historically a disaster. Because in the midst of this free agency move,
bam! 2 more franchises. The Suns and the Lakers are sentenced to more years of failure and despair. We're just taking teams down left and right in 2012 here. Side note, history's other culprit for this historic Lakers all-star collapse is this guy. And he really carried a lot on those blasphemous shoulders of his. I mean, but the man did average like 18 and 13 and got almost zero sympathy or room to breathe on account of the injury he played with. Boy, let me tell you, having an injury in the NBA is a lose-lose-lose situation. You can't play injured and then talk about it. You can't talk about it because there's no excuses, but then there's no excuses, so you can't talk about it. But if you played bad, you have an excuse built in, but if the fans talk about it, then you're still making excuses, but you don't show up with the cast on because then you're really making... Anyway, it can all backfire. And here's a front row seat into how playing despite an injury and not really talking about it can backfire. While we have this interviewer really feel entitled to some sort of... Alright, just listen.
He was talking about me as a player. I was talking about you on a team that I cared about, and I thought that you would have been great, and I was disappointed. And as any fan would have been, Dwight, we would have been heavy.
But when I came here injured.
Thank you! You hear this. Our host here has tossed out all journalistic integrity and absolutely rode Dwight as a bitter Laker fan.
I had back surgery.
Right.
I wasn't supposed to play for a whole season. Thank you.
Chill out, D.
I wasn't supposed to play for a whole season, but I wanted to show the Laker fans how much I love this game. I came back in 4 months.
Okay. That's
fair. I played with a torn labrum.
I remember all that. That's very
But
fair.
they were saying that I couldn't play. I played with a torn labrum.
Who said you couldn't play? I never said you couldn't play.
This is not an interview. This is a mad fan barely letting the actual basketball player even talk. And credit to Dwight. He just kept taking it. I mean, taking it.
No, not play like that. I came out here and I wasn't trying to play my best. And I'm like, man, I gave this city 18 and 13.
I think you felt that way, but
no, but even the last game when I got kicked out, I got 2 texts. And they showed the scene of me and Mitch Kupchak. And I just turned around.
What scene was that?
It was a scene where he slapped me on the butt and said, good job. And I didn't even know it was him. When I turned around, I said, man, you gotta talk to these refs because it was crazy tonight. And they took it as me going off on him. This was all over reports.
You said the media said that you were going off on Mitch Kupchak because he slapped your butt.
It's kind of gross. How hostile this starts off. Like Dwight owes her something. And he better have an acceptable answer.
No, I was going off and they thought I was cursing at him about the team. And then they flipped it and said Kobe came out right after I did that. So it was like this war between me and Kobe.
Did you have war with Kobe?
No, not at all. I thought that we just were in 2 different points of our career.
Which was?
And I didn't come to LA thinking about trying to take over. I came to LA.
I don't think they thought that.
Oh, yes, they did. You didn't see that billboard, Stay Dwight?
I didn't feel like they thought you were going to come take over. I felt like they were like, you coming in and you going to make things great, but I didn't feel like you were taking over and you were taking the keys from Kobe.
This is what I wanted. This is what I told them. I said I wanted to learn from him.
Okay.
I wanted to learn from Steve. I wanted to learn from Pal. I wanted to learn from all those guys who were there because one day they were going to have to retire.
Right.
That was my whole mindset. You know, I never want this.
So what went wrong?
Would you come back? Would you come back if you were free? Would you come back to be a Laker?
What went wrong?
What went wrong? I think it was just communication.
Communication is right. Ugh. All right, whatever. Back to the show. Side note to the side note. When did TV folks, specifically national TV folks, decide to just drop the act entirely? I mean, journalism, impartiality, neutralness, right? Just drop it and entirely become a fan-first personality. I mean, there's nothing that bothers me more than watching a talking head refer to a team as we. All right, whatever. Back to it.
Okay. We've seen the catalyst of team rot. We've seen hope, the edge of hope, being quite sharp. But as other players bailed from internally collapsing systems or joined teams under the impression they had life left and didn't, one player took the confirmed little bit of light he still had left and sparked a flame that set a whole forest ablaze. Ray Allen. Potentially the only good move for a receiving team in 2012. But for the other side, the one he was exiting from, Ray effectively killed the Celtics dynasty. The dynasty that never was a dynasty. Completely sinking any chance they had at multiple titles. Right, Bill?
I think that you're going to win at least 2 or 3 championships here. Okay?
I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh man, don't even try. Don't sentence them to multiple titles. Don't ever start the conversation off with multiple. Stop. Just stop starting it with multiple.
Not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
Say championship contenders. They're going to be championship contenders for years. Sans the multiple. But Ray did something else that almost no other former superstar knows how to do. He mimicked an extremely successful strategy that has worked in San Antonio for years, and one that would work for the Warriors in the future as it approached its historic run.
The sacrifice you made, not ever starting a regular season game.
Ray went from being seen as a star, a team-leading star, to a co-star and a key option to a legitimate role player off the bench. And he did this before he was completely washed. An approach I believe every single superstar should be considering. Within 2 to 3 years before your natural decay, you need to take a role off the bench. A role where you play primarily with the second unit. And this will create great success. For example, a 2015 Melo off the bench. A 2009 Allen Iverson off the bench in some team. Becoming your inner mandible Manu for the sake of winning. But this will never become a popular choice. And until then, we look back at how Manu sacrificed so much personal success to do this for an entire career, whether he was forced or not by the man. Andre Iguodala, before he was old, decrepit man, complying and understanding that the sixth man is where he would fit best.
You know, when Steve first told me I was going to the bench, it was a really tough adjustment. But if you have a genuine respect and reverence for the game, I feel like things always come your way. You know, you reap what you sow.
And then Ray, off the bench, 25 minutes a game. Not gunking up the whole game with his ego and baggage. He was able to help this team win because he knew his role before it was over for him.
Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining.
Okay, a few more things about 2012. From Tim Duncan not even considering his options on another team, even though he was a free agent, but willingly going from $21 million to $9 million for the sake of the Spurs, Greg Popovich's ego, I guess.
I feel like a daddy.
Keeping it all together, and the chance to win more. I mean, that's nice and all, but jeez, Timmy. And in 2012, you had no idea you were headed towards a nasty divorce and your accountant losing $25 million of your dollars randomly. Just poof, gone. We don't even know why. I mean, really, I hope the Spurs have some sort of cush job for him where he just shows up and collects a check in retirement. Because to go from 21 to 9, we talk about sacrificing money. LeBron sacrificing a couple million for Wade and Bosh. KD sacrificing a few million and a bonus, whatever. Tim Duncan went from $21 million to $9 million for the sake of the team. Good Lord. Also, 2012 free agency included Nick Young and JaVale McGee. They were able to determine their own fate in 2012. But for these two, fate was not really in their hands. Both carried very specific league reps, both which wasn't all their fault. See, Nick Young as a player was legitimately skilled and had potential. Unfortunately, he was effectively and admittedly corrupted by an irresponsible, manic Gilbert Arenas. A man who should have never been in charge of a rookie. Listen.
Some people might know, but I don't know the relationship of you two.
He ruined my life. That's all it is. That's all it is. That he owed me for this.
Can you break down this friendship?
So he was, you know, when you're in the NBA, you know, when you're the star player, you pick rookies.
Oh.
and he was my rookie in Washington.
And he's never maximized his ability ever since then.
I couldn't.
See? And then JaVale, who came from a grade A bloodline and had raw ability. He had the ability of any great big man, but through some odd self-perpetuating circle of humiliation, he became the target of Shaqtin' a Fool.
Every time you mess up, you know what you're gonna be on, baby. Shaqtin' a Fool. Gotta get you.
And for the next 5 or so years, he was ridiculed relentlessly by these grown men in a studio.
He says we put JaVale in there too much. So I'll tell you what.
If he stopped doing stupid stuff,
I know
we'll put
that.
him on there.
Side note, Ernie voted for John Kasich in the 2016 election. I always like to remind people of that. So what happens?
I was seeing things like I'm dumb, I'm a bad basketball player, low IQ, I'm an idiot, and a GM or owner of a team starts thinking that, and they're like, no, we don't want to sign him. And that's now affecting my livelihood and how I pay my bills and how I feed my family. So
JaVale, not really attractive to the rest of the league right now, even though he's playing okay, is stuck to signing with Denver again. But just like so many other 2012ers, he was just a half season away from a career-haunting injury. And the spiral of jokes and lack of chance to redeem himself almost drove him mad. Bouncing around from team to team, playing very little minutes and nobody trusting him. And Nick got out of the toxic Wizards locker room and went to the 76ers, where the money was always mid-level, team success and personal success was non-existent, and oddly enough, he ended up on the same Lakers team with that Steve Nash, and he rode that Lakers wave all the way to the bottom of the division until the completely unimaginable, when in consecutive years, the Golden State Warriors, NBA champs, signed JaVale McGee, and the following year, Nick Young, and brought them out of NBA oblivion, cleaned them up, gave them a chance to be respected, and made them champions. And speaking of championships and characters, winning and personalities, this free agency class had it all. From Michael Beasley, your favorite player's favorite player, J.R. Smith from this clip here.
James now wanted a timeout, but too late to get it.
I'm a broken man.
And 5 minutes go up on the clock, overtime here in game 1.
Danny, I hit a lot of threes before I don't hit a lot of threes green. Marcus Camby, old school grit. You remember Marcus Camby? Free agent in 2012. Nate Robinson, dunking on people 5'0" Nate Robinson. Michael Redd, the Ghost. Anthony Randolph, the Legend. Baron Davis, the We Believe Warriors.
Basketball, because a lot of good things will happen, not just with him scoring, but then also it open up.
I still don't understand the pulling up the shirt deal there, showing off the Spanx. I don't know, getting that little Spanx revolution started anyway.
Matt Barnes, Boris Diaw, Banana Boat 2, Boris Diaw. Jamal Crawford, as we mentioned. Antoine Jameson, Brooke and Robin Lopez. Kwame Brown, the kid that Jordan condemned and broke Kwame Brown.
But see, this guy is just really a tragic figure where the truth is just way outside the dialogue and too tough to grapple with, to the point where all we want is just fun Jordan stories to laugh at.
Kwame Brown is a kid that went through a struggle that the average person would die going through. You know, I went from a homeless shelter. I was one of 8 children. So how can you call that kid a loser or that kid unsuccessful when if you put your son in the same situations I was in, or even you probably wouldn't be here.
See, this guy was not well, and he was at the nexus of like the cult of tough and that need to make money. And unlike folks like KD, where playing injured is a vanity choice, you know, where it's all about the competition and legacy and where you want to be placed in the history of basketball. For Kwame, it wasn't any of those things. The man had to play, and he did. And he was forced to play, kind of.
In LA, couldn't dunk a basketball, and this video is rotating on YouTube. Mitch Kupchak called me in the office and said, I need you to play. You know, I come from the inner city of Georgia and from the slums. You're paying me $8 million. They shot me up with cortisone, I played. That summer, I had ankle reconstructive surgery and shoulder surgery.
But the casual fan don't care about that. They just laugh. He couldn't dunk a basketball.
And we don't talk about that. And what the NBA really does in those situations and what's completely acceptable. And then on to the Jordan thing. This was a great little point that he made about Jordan.
Michael has never brought me to tears. Did he upset me a lot? Yeah. I mean, he's a competitor. That's what I think it's much to do about nothing. So many people want to make up stories about Michael Jordan that he could have been the greatest guy in the world to me. They still would have made up something.
Really? How can you prove any of this stuff? I mean, do you even believe him? I want to, but anyway, all right. On to some more 2012ers. KG, TD, RA. This list, man, this is the heart of the NBA. It is the personality that spans multiple eras. This and the previously mentioned names. Everything you want to know about the NBA. It ain't 7 degrees of separation, it's 1 degree. This group is 1 degree from almost everything in our modern era. This class is a full-blown representation of what the NBA was and where it was going and where it had been. I mean, so many icons, players, pillars, crumbling down, mediocrity rising up, norms being torn away, loyalty being destroyed, teams being plundered, coaches being ousted,
My time is up, and it's time to move on.
rules being changed. And here is your kicker. This 2012 free agent class would be represented on every championship team for a 20-year span. All the way from 1999 with Tim Duncan and the Spurs through 2019 and Jeremy Lin and the Toronto Raptors. Actually, let me check on that. 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, Okay, all right. Anyway, 2012 class represented in every championship over a 20-year span. Except for 2006 and 2016, which happened to be LeBron teams, and I don't know, those don't count. Anyway, the 2012 class and the moves they made, well, they might not have been the decision LeBron type of moves. You know, catastrophic type moves. You know, meteor crashing into the earth type things. But collectively, 2012 was like freaking global warming or tectonic plates shifting, changing the continents over time. You know? Yeah, that's it. These moves may have unfolded over time, but boy, it sure did reshape the NBA. Blah.